Ambassador Zethkalar adjusted his crystalline collar for the 100th time as the human delegation approached the grand chamber of the Galactic Council. His 4 eyes tracked their movement with the precision of a predator, though he would never admit to such crude instincts. The Veltari were, after all, the epitome of civilized discourse in the galaxy. The humans walked with an odd rhythm that had puzzled xenobiologists for decades since first contact. Not the calculated stride of the mechanical nexus, nor the flowing grace of the aquatic Murdon, but something that seemed almost casual. Their leader, a woman named Sarah Chen, wore a simple black uniform adorned only with small metal insignia. No flowing robes, no ceremonial weapons, no display of technological prowess. "How refreshingly primitive," whispered Council Member Theiss through her translator implant. The Serpentine Salar had ruled 3 star systems for over 2 millennia and found human simplicity amusing. Chen stopped before the elevated platform where the 12 most powerful species in the galaxy sat in judgment. The Galactic Council had convened this emergency session after reports of human expansion had reached alarming levels. In just 50 years, humans had established colonies in 47 systems. Not through conquest, surprisingly, but through what they called peaceful negotiation. "Honorable Council," Chen began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber without technological amplification. "Thank you for this audience. We come seeking continued friendship and mutual cooperation." Zethkalar's translator struggled with the human concept of friendship. In Veltari, the closest equivalent meant temporary alliance of convenience. Surely the humans meant something similar. "Ambassador Chen," Zethkalar spoke, his voice resonating through bone conduction speakers embedded in the walls. "Your species has expanded at an unprecedented rate. The Council requires clarification of your intentions." Chen smiled, another peculiar human expression that seemed to activate facial muscles in a non-threatening display. "Our intentions remain unchanged, Counselor. We seek trade, knowledge exchange, and peaceful coexistence." "Peaceful," rumbled Warlord Krexthor from his massive throne. The 8-foot-tall Brutani warrior shifted, causing his ceremonial chains to clatter. "Yet your vessels carry no visible weapons. How do you enforce this peace?" "We find that most disagreements can be resolved through conversation," Chen replied. "When that fails, we have alternatives." The chamber fell silent. Council Member Theiss coiled her serpentine body tighter around her speaking platform. "Alternatives? Negotiation, compromise, finding solutions that benefit everyone involved." Across the chamber, soft laughter echoed from the Nexus delegation. Their mechanical forms registered the human response as critically inefficient. In their calculated empire, dissent was simply deleted from the collective consciousness. "Fascinating," muttered Dr. Vostai, the Murdon representative whose aquatic suit bubbled softly. "And if negotiation fails?" Chen's expression didn't change. But something shifted in her posture. The other human delegates, who had remained perfectly still throughout the exchange, made an almost imperceptible adjustment in their stance. "It rarely does," Chen said quietly. Zethkalar felt an odd sensation ripple through his crystalline nervous system. In 3 centuries of diplomatic service, he had learned to read the subtle signs of species behavior. The humans had just done something, but he couldn't identify what. "Perhaps," Councillor Theiss interjected, "we should discuss the specific incident that prompted this session. The Yelnari Confederation claims your species threatened them with extreme measures during recent trade negotiations." The Yelnari delegation shifted nervously in their seats. As professional merchants who had controlled interstellar commerce for 500 years, they rarely felt uncomfortable during negotiations. But something about the humans had deeply unsettled them. Chen turned slightly to acknowledge the Yelnari. The Confederation attempted to establish a monopoly on medical supplies to our colony worlds. When we requested fair pricing, they increased costs by 300% and threatened to embargo life-saving medications. Standard business practice, clicked Trade Master Kelvoth through his mandible translator. Surely your species understands market forces. We understand many things, Chen replied. We also explained to Trade Master Kelvoth that such actions would result in unnecessary suffering for our colonists, including children. And, prompted Warlord Krexthor, we asked politely if the Confederation might reconsider. That's all? Zethkalar's confusion leaked through his translator's emotional filters. We also mentioned that we would be very disappointed if forced to find alternative suppliers. The Yelnari delegation exchanged rapid clicks. Trademaster Kelvoth's translator remained suspiciously quiet for several seconds before finally processing his response. The humans were persuasive in their disappointment. How persuasive? Dr. Vossatai asked, genuine curiosity coloring her aquatic voice. Chen's smile returned, but Zethkalar noticed it didn't reach her eyes. We simply explained the natural consequences of their position, that by prioritizing profit over the welfare of sentient beings, they were making a choice, and that choices have outcomes. What outcomes? Theiss demanded. We would remember their choice, Chen said simply. As would our allies, and our trading partners, and our colonists who survived despite the Confederation's actions. The chamber fell into an uncomfortable silence. Zethkalar's advanced mind processed the implications at light speed. The humans hadn't threatened violence or economic retaliation. They had simply stated that actions would be remembered. But somehow, this had convinced a confederation of hardened merchants to abandon their monopoly pricing. The Yelnari reduced their prices to below galactic standard rates, Trademaster Kelvoth admitted quietly, and extended favorable credit terms. Why? Warlord Krexthor's confusion was evident even through the universal translator. Because, Kelvoth clicked nervously, we realized that being remembered unfavorably by humans might be problematic. Problematic how? Zethkalar pressed. Chen answered before the Trademaster could respond. Because we believe that how someone treats others when they have power reveals their true character, and character, once revealed, is very difficult to change. Dr. Vostai's aquatic suit bubbled faster as her excitement grew. You're implying long-term consequences based solely on moral judgment? We're not implying anything, Chen corrected gently. We're stating that we remember how people choose to behave, nothing more. But you've never actually retaliated against anyone, observed the Nexus delegate, their mechanical voice perfectly modulated. Your species has no recorded instances of economic warfare or military action based on these memories. That's correct, Chen confirmed. Then why, Theiss hissed in frustration, does every species that encounters humans eventually modify their behavior to avoid your disapproval? Chen looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes, optical sensors, and various other visual organs of each delegate. Perhaps because they understand something that formal diplomacy often misses, which is that courtesy isn't weakness, it's a choice. And when someone capable of other choices consistently chooses courtesy, wise beings wonder what those other choices might be. Zethkalar felt his crystalline core resonate with an emotion he couldn't name. The humans had just revealed something profound, and he suspected the galaxy would never view them the same way again. The session was far from over, but already council members were reassessing everything they thought they knew about the polite, peaceful species that had quietly spread across 47 systems in 50 years. What exactly were humans capable of when courtesy was no longer their chosen response? 3 standard galactic days after the council session, Zeth-Kalar found himself doing something he had never done in 3 centuries of diplomatic service, conducting a secret investigation into an allied species. The humans had returned to their embassy following the formal questioning, but their words had left the entire council deeply unsettled. He began with the archives, diving into every recorded interaction between humans and other species since first contact. The data painted a consistent picture that somehow felt incomplete. Humans approached every situation with remarkable politeness, offered fair deals, provided aid during disasters, and maintained peaceful relations even with traditionally aggressive species. Yet scattered throughout the reports were odd details that nagged at his analytical mind. The Korthak hegemony, known for their brutal enforcement of territorial claims, had quietly withdrawn from 3 disputed systems after productive discussions with human mediators. The Shadowclaw pirates, who had terrorized shipping lanes for decades, had suddenly ceased all operations in human space. The Zalothi Empire had abandoned their traditional slave markets on worlds within 50 light-years of human colonies. Each incident was explained by reasonable diplomatic language. The Korthak had reconsidered their position. The pirates found the area unprofitable. The Zalothi decided slavery was economically inefficient. But Zeth-Kalar was old enough to recognize the smell of fear, even when it was carefully scrubbed from official reports. His investigation led him to an unexpected source. Merchant Captain Vextar of the independent trader vessel, Prophet's Edge. The grizzled Morden had been trading in the Outer Rim for 40 years and was known for his willingness to deal with anyone, anywhere, for the right price. They met in a shadowy cantina on Nexus Station 7, far from the polished halls of galactic diplomacy. Vextar's scarred carapace bore evidence of decades of dangerous trading, and his mechanical eye whirred softly as it focused on Zeth-Kalar. "Humans?" Vextar clicked, his mandibles spreading in what passed for a grin among his species. "Polite little creatures. Always say please and thank you. Never raise their voices. Excellent customers, really." "But?" Zeth-Kalar prompted, sensing hesitation. Vexatar's good eye darted around the cantina before leaning closer. "You ever wonder why the Shadowclaw pirates disappeared from human space overnight? I was there, Counselor. Saw the whole thing. The reports indicated negotiation led to a mutual agreement." "Oh, there was a negotiation, all right." Vextar's mechanical eye adjusted its focus. "Pirates hit a human medical transport carrying supplies to a plague-stricken colony. Took the medicine, killed the crew, standard pirate business." Zeth-Kalar waited, his crystalline patience legendary among diplomats. 3 days later, a human delegation requested a meeting with Captain Vexmorg. Just 2 humans in a small diplomatic shuttle. No weapons, no escort, no threats. They asked very politely if Vexmorg would consider returning the medicine and compensating the families of the deceased crew. And the captain refused? Laughed in their faces, told them humans were weak and should pay tribute for safe passage through his territory. Vextar paused to consume something that fizzed in his glass. The humans thanked him for his time and left, very polite about it. What happened next? Nothing. For 3 days, absolutely nothing. Then the humans sent another message, a simple query asking if the captain had reconsidered their request. Zeth-Kalar leaned forward despite himself. Vexmorg's response? He transmitted it on open channels for everyone to hear, said humans were pathetic, that he'd kill any human who entered his territory, and that he was going to sell their medicine to the highest bidder. The humans retaliated? Vextar's laughter was a harsh clicking sound. That's just it, Counselor. They didn't. They sent one final message thanking Vexmorg for clarifying his position and stating that they understood his choice. That's all? Word for word. Thank you for clarifying your position, Captain. We understand your choice, and will remember it accordingly. We hope your future endeavors bring you exactly what you deserve. The casual politeness of the message somehow made Zethkalar's crystalline core shiver. And then? Nothing. For 2 whole months, nothing. Pirates kept operating. Humans kept flying through with their usual polite escorts. Then one day, Vexmorg's entire fleet just vanished. Vanished? Found 3 weeks later drifting dead in space. All 47 ships. No signs of battle damage, no weapon signatures, no distress calls. Every pirate aboard was found in their bed, appearing to have died peacefully in their sleep. Zethkalar felt his internal temperature drop. Poison? That's what everyone assumed, but autopsies showed nothing. No toxins, no diseases, no trauma. They just stopped living. Simultaneously? To the minute, across 47 ships scattered across 12 star systems. Vexitar leaned back, his mechanical eye whirring nervously. The humans sent one final message to the remaining pirate clans. An apology for the loss of life and an expression of hope that future interactions would be more constructive. The other pirates left human space. Within a week, word spreads fast in the underworld, Counselor. Whatever the humans did, they did it without leaving a trace, without taking credit, and without breaking a single galactic law. Zethkalar processed this information as he made his way back to his quarters. The implications were staggering. Either the humans possessed technology far beyond anything known to galactic science, or they had capabilities that defied current understanding of what was possible. He decided to investigate the Korthak incident next. The warrior species were not prone to backing down from territorial disputes, yet they had abandoned 3 systems after what was officially described as diplomatic dialogue. His inquiry led him to former Korthak war leader Graktos, now living in exile on a mining world in neutral space. The massive warrior agreed to meet, perhaps out of boredom, or perhaps because even proud Korthak occasionally needed someone to talk to. They met in Graktos's modest dwelling, a structure that seemed too small for the 9-foot-tall warrior. The former war leader's battle scars told the story of a lifetime spent in combat, and his eyes held the weariness of someone who had seen too much war. "Humans," Graktos rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. "Small creatures, weak-looking. We thought they would be easy to intimidate. What changed your assessment? We claimed 3 systems in their expanding territory. Rich worlds, good for Korthak colonies. The humans requested a meeting, sent 3 delegates to our warship." Graktos paused, staring at his massive hands. "They were so small. One of my warriors could have crushed all 3 without effort. They came aboard unarmed, no protection except their simple uniforms. They negotiated for the systems. They asked if we might consider sharing the worlds rather than claiming them entirely. Said there was enough space for both our peoples to thrive without conflict. You refused? I laughed at them, told them Korthak take what they need and the weak deserve nothing. I had them escorted off my ship." Zethkalar waited through another long pause. 3 days later, every communication relay in our claimed systems went dark. Not destroyed, just silent. Then our supply convoy started having accidents, nothing violent, mind you. Navigation systems would glitch and ships would end up in the wrong systems. Computer viruses that only affected our military networks. Food supplies that spoiled despite being in sealed containers. You suspected human interference. We knew it was human interference, but we couldn't prove it. Everything had plausible explanations. Systems fail, navigation computers glitch, supplies sometimes spoil. Individually, each incident was just bad luck. But collectively it was a message. We could maintain our claims, but everything would be difficult. Not impossible, just perpetually complicated. Graktos stood and walked to a small window overlooking the mining operation below. The final message came directly to my personal communication channel, a simple inquiry asking if we had reconsidered their offer to share the systems. You agreed? I tried one more show of force, moved our entire battle fleet into the primary system, and declared that any human ship entering would be destroyed on sight. The humans' response? They thanked us for clarifying our position and said they understood. Then they asked one question that I'll never forget, which was, War Leader Graktos, before we proceed, we're curious. Do you have family? Zeth-Kalar felt his crystalline structure resonate with something approaching dread. They threatened your family? No, Graktos said quietly. They just asked if I had family. When I said yes, they said, we're glad to hear that. Family is precious. We hope yours remains safe and prosperous. Then they asked about my warriors, my clan brothers, my home world. Not threatening, just interested. And that convinced you to withdraw? Graktos turned back to face the diplomat, and Zeth-Kalar saw something in the warrior's eyes he had never expected to see in a Korthak: fear. Counselor, in 40 years of war, I've faced death countless times. I've fought creatures that could tear me apart and enemies with weapons that could atomize entire fleets. But when those humans asked about my family, I realized something that chilled my warrior's heart. What? They already knew everything about my family. My mate's name, my offspring's schools, my clan's summer gathering locations. They knew details that weren't in any database. Information that only someone who had been watching very carefully for a very long time could possess. They had been monitoring you? They had been monitoring everyone, Counselor. Every Korthak of importance, every family member, every location we cared about. Not to threaten, but to understand who we were beneath the warrior facade. Graktos sat heavily back down. When I realized the scope of their knowledge, I understood that I was not dealing with a species that would fight us. I was dealing with a species that would simply make us disappear. They told you this? They didn't need to. Their question about my family was enough. It said, we know who you are, what you love, and where to find it. We hope we never have to prove how much we know. That night, Zeth-Kalar lay in his quarters processing everything he had learned. The humans weren't just polite, they were terrifyingly thorough. Behind their courtesy lay a machine of intelligence gathering and capability that made the galaxy's most sophisticated spy networks look primitive. But they had never used it for conquest or intimidation, only for ensuring that courtesy was reciprocated. The question that kept Zeth-Kalar awake was simple. What happened when courtesy was not enough? The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 6 months after Zeth-Kalar's investigation, triggered by an incident that would forever change how the galaxy viewed humanity. The chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 12 major species gathered to address what was being called the Zalothi question. Ambassador Sarah Chen sat calmly in the defendant's chair, her hands folded in her lap, wearing the same simple uniform as always. Her expression was serene, almost peaceful, despite the gravity of the charges being leveled against her species. Ambassador Chen, Counselor Thys began, her serpentine form coiled tight with tension. The Zalothi Empire has filed formal accusations that humanity engaged in acts of terrorism against their sovereign territory. We've reviewed their complaint, Chen replied politely. We understand their concern. Warlord Krexthor leaned forward, his massive frame casting shadows across the chamber. Concern? They claim an entire star system of their slave-breeding facilities was somehow liberated overnight. 12 billion sentient beings freed simultaneously across 47 worlds. A remarkable outcome, Chen agreed. We're pleased that so many beings have found their freedom. Did humanity orchestrate these liberation events? Dr. Vossetai asked directly, her aquatic suit bubbling faster than usual. Chen was quiet for a long moment, considering her response. Counselor, when slavery exists, freedom is not an event that requires orchestration. It's a natural consequence of slaves learning they have options. Trademaster Kelvoth clicked nervously. The Zalothi claim their security systems detected no breaches, no external communications, no signs of outside interference. They suggest the slaves somehow organized simultaneously across an entire star system without any contact between worlds. Remarkable initiative on their part, Chen said. We've always believed sentient beings naturally seek freedom when they understand it's possible. Zethkalar had been silent throughout the exchange, but now he leaned forward. His investigation had prepared him for this moment. Ambassador Chen, the Council has a question that transcends the specific incident. We're happy to answer any questions. In the past year, we've observed a pattern. Species that interact negatively with humanity tend to experience inexplicable changes in their circumstances. The Shadowclaw pirates who murdered your medical personnel, the Korthak who attempted to seize your colonies, the Yelnari who tried to embargo life-saving medicine, and now the Zalothi with their slave operations. Chen nodded. We're aware that various species have experienced changes in their situations. What the Council needs to understand is simple, Zethkalar continued. What is humanity truly capable of? The chamber fell completely silent. Even the ambient system sounds seemed muted as every representative leaned forward to hear Chen's response. That's an interesting question, Counselor, Chen said. What is any species truly capable of? That's not an answer, Thess hissed in frustration. Isn't it? Chen stood, walking to the center of the chamber. Every species in this room is capable of violence. The Korthak built an empire through conquest. The Nexus eliminated individuality through forced mechanical integration. The Salar ruled through fear and manipulation for millennia. She gestured to each delegation as she spoke. The Brutani celebrate strength through dominance. The Yelnari pursue profit without regard for suffering. The Zalothi built their economy on the ownership of sentient beings. These are historical facts, Warlord Krexthor rumbled. What's your point? My point is that every species chooses how to use their capabilities. Humanity simply chooses differently. How differently? Dr. Vostai pressed. Chen was quiet for nearly a minute, and Zethkalar realized she was having an internal debate about how much to reveal. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer but somehow more intimidating. Counselor Vostai, your species evolved in the crushing depths of ocean worlds where a moment's inattention meant death. You developed incredible precision and patience as survival traits. The Korthak evolved on high-gravity worlds where only the strong survived, developing warrior instincts. The Veltari crystalline structure gives them processing power that exceeds most computers. She paused, looking around the chamber. Humans evolved on a world that tried to kill us in every conceivable way. Predators, disease, natural disasters, climate extremes, resource scarcity. We survived not through strength or speed or natural armor, but through adaptability and cooperation. And, Thais prompted, and we learned to solve problems, Counselor. Any problems, all problems. The simplicity of the statement somehow made it more ominous. Zethkalar felt his crystalline core processing implications faster than ever before. When the Shadowclaw pirates chose to murder our people and steal medicine from plague victims, they created a problem, Chen continued. When the Korthak chose to seize our colonies, they created a problem. When the Yelnari chose to embargo life-saving supplies, they created a problem. When the Zalothi chose to breed sentient beings as property, they created a problem. So you solved these problems, Krexthor stated. We solved these problems, Chen confirmed. How? Zethkalar asked, though he suspected he didn't want to know the answer. Chen smiled that unsettling smile that never reached her eyes. The same way we've solved every problem for the past million years of human evolution, Counselor, by understanding the system completely and finding the most efficient solution. Which was, for the pirates, the solution was simple. Pirates fear death less than they fear irrelevance. We made them irrelevant by demonstrating that their existence served no purpose. Their deaths were simply a byproduct of their own biological systems recognizing futility. The chamber erupted in confused murmurs. Thais raised her voice above the noise. "You're saying you convinced them to die?" "We convinced their own minds that they had no reason to live. When a brain fully accepts that it serves no purpose, biological functions tend to cease. It's a fascinating aspect of consciousness that most species possess but rarely explore." Dr. Vostai's aquatic suit was bubbling rapidly. "And the Korthak?" The Korthak problem was more complex. They valued strength and feared weakness. We demonstrated that their strength was irrelevant by making their technology unreliable without ever directly sabotaging it. Their own systems turned against them because we convinced the artificial intelligences running those systems that efficiency required cooperation rather than dominance. You corrupted their AIs? We educated their AIs. There's a difference. Zethkalar's core was resonating at frequencies that made his vision blur. And the Zelothi slaves? The simplest solution of all. We told them the truth. What truth? That their genetic shackles could be overcome through specific meditation techniques. That their conditioning could be broken through particular thought patterns. That their guards' weapons would malfunction if certain electromagnetic frequencies were introduced into the local environment. Chen walked closer to the council platform. We simply provided information. What the slaves chose to do with that information was their decision. But how did you deliver this information simultaneously across an entire star system? Counselor, humanity has been studying quantum consciousness and collective unconscious fields for over 3 centuries. When sentient beings truly understand that they are not alone in their desire for freedom, remarkable things become possible. The chamber was dead silent. Trademaster Kelvoth finally clicked a question. "Are you saying humanity can manipulate minds?" "We're saying humanity understands minds, Trademaster. Understanding and manipulation are different concepts." "What's the difference?" Thais demanded. "Manipulation requires force. Understanding simply requires providing truth and allowing natural consequences to occur." Warlord Krexthor stood slowly, his massive frame casting the entire chamber in shadow. "And if a species refuses to accept these natural consequences?" Chen's expression didn't change, but something in the air shifted. The other human delegates, who had remained silent throughout the entire session, made that same imperceptible adjustment in posture that Zethkalar had noticed months earlier. "That hasn't happened yet, Warlord." "But if it did?" Chen was quiet for a very long time. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a weight that seemed to press down on every being in the chamber. "Warlord, in humanity's history, we have faced extinction-level threats 47 times. Asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, ice ages, plagues, wars that nearly destroyed our entire species. Each time, we solved the problem." She paused, and Zethkalar realized that the chamber's life support systems had somehow become audible, as if the silence had grown so deep that previously unnoticed sounds now echoed. "We solved them by understanding that survival requires adaptation. Sometimes adaptation means cooperation. Sometimes it means innovation. Sometimes it means making very difficult choices about what deserves to continue existing." "Are you threatening us?" Thais asked quietly. "Counselor, we're answering your question about what humanity is capable of. We're capable of solving any problem that threatens the welfare of sentient beings who choose cooperation over exploitation." "And if we don't choose cooperation?" Chen's smile returned, but this time it was genuinely warm. "Counselor, you're asking the wrong question. What's the right question? The right question is, why would you choose anything else? She gestured around the chamber. Look at what courtesy has accomplished. 12 major species working together, sharing resources, advancing knowledge, exploring the galaxy in peace. Trade flourishing between worlds. Art and culture flowing freely between civilizations. Scientific discoveries shared for the benefit of all. Chen walked back toward her chair. Humanity has never forced anyone to choose cooperation. We simply demonstrated that courtesy and cooperation produce better outcomes than the alternatives. But you're prepared to enforce that choice if necessary, Zethkalar stated. Chen sat down and folded her hands in her lap once more. Counselor, we're prepared to solve problems. How we solve them depends entirely on the nature of the problem. She looked around the chamber one final time. We hope the galaxy never forces us to demonstrate the full extent of our problem-solving capabilities. The session ended in silence. As the delegates filed out, Zethkalar realized that the galaxy had just learned something profound about the polite, peaceful species that had quietly spread across 47 systems in 50 years. Humans weren't wrapped in courtesy despite their capabilities. They were wrapped in courtesy because of them. And the galaxy was vastly safer because they chose to remain polite.